A movie based on the life of John Paul II premiered on U.S. and Italian television to great acclaim a few years ago. Academy Award winner Jon Voight and Cary Elwes portrayed John Paul at various times in his life. I spoke with both of the actors about how they prepared to play this soon-to-be saint and the effect it had on their personal lives. Here are the interviews. John Paul, according to some reports, wanted you to play him in a version of his life that he had penned in, what was that, the early 80s?
That's right, in the early 80s, and there was a piece that he had written, and they were going to make a film of it, and there were several people that were sent to him, you know, as possible fellows to play him, and he had approved me. The film was never made, and then all those many years later, you know, last year, I was called upon, you know, to play him again by a group, you know, this nice group. And I felt that his hand was on my shoulder and he was saying, okay, go do it, you know.
At long last,
your
go
time,
do it.
yeah.
And when the John Paul project came up, you thought what? Because this is intimidating. This man is such, he loomed so large on the world scene for so long.
Well, I was attentive to his papacy, obviously, and as everyone else in the world was, as a matter of fact. And when it first came to me, I thought, I got a phone call, I was looking in the mirror, and as I was hearing the words, I was looking at my face, and I was thinking, wow, I think I could do this thing, you know? There's enough similarity. So I said, well, maybe this is for me. And one doesn't think that something's going to come to you, as with Ben Kingsley had Gandhi,
right.
There was such a similarity. and occasionally those things happen, and this was a bit of a mark that it was meant for me to do. So I was looking at it, and then I heard then I started going over tapes of his voice and visuals from DVDs.
You didn't have much time to prepare, though,
Not
right,
too
John?
much time, no. But I'm very good at using the time.
I spent many, many times with this man. You are astounding in the role, in not only that you capture his physicality, which you have and you do. There are moments, though, John, where when you look up at the camera or you look at someone, there is this gentle kindness, this strong kindness, if you will, like a lion, that comes through in your playing of the role.
Oh, isn't that nice to hear?
And I mean, it's something of you too. I mean, I see that, but the way you focus that, tell me a little more about the preparation. I know you read the encyclicals, the poetry. You obviously listened to the man because the vocal, your vocal characterization is dead on.
Yeah. Well, I took sections of I looked through a lot of DVDs, and it was a wonderful journey. And by the way, listen, for everyone who's listening who is interested in this man, and I think he's an important man because I think he gives a continuous inspiration for us today in what we face. So his words are going to be very helpful to us. But to go back and look at the DVDs and appreciate what he did, if this movie does nothing but that, it would be very important that people go back and look at the original and hear his voice. Well, I did a lot of that, and I heard his voice speaking Polish, speaking Italian, speaking, you know, all these things, and and speaking English. And he and his English, when he spoke it, was very strongly accented, but somehow very tasty. I mean, you liked it. You know what I mean? It was fun. So. And then when I heard his voice, I know my voice pretty well, and I heard the notes. I said, I can be remarkably like him. My voice is in a similar pitch area.
Range,
the timbre is pretty much the same. So I had the fun of playing around to see if I could get some of that stuff. And when he was older, of course, he had Parkinson's. He had. His upper lip was paralyzed. He was having saliva in his mouth because, you know, he was starting to lose certain capacities, and it was very, very interesting. So I did a tremendous examination of the physical man. I must say, once I was doing it, there were things that happened, and those things that happened naturally because the preparation had been done were the fruits of all the labor. And they happened without real preparation. Like I remember just in the scene where his friend, his childhood friend, says to him that, well, she gets flustered, and her husband says, well, you know, she didn't think you'd come back to Poland. And I said, well, oh, ye of little faith, and I hold her. And then she says this, she gets flustered, and I hit her in the forehead. Just a little touch. And it was so sweet. I don't know why it was,
but that's
it's just
him.
a love gesture.
Yeah, and he had that little impish, lovely way about him.
And it was so intimate, and so, it was just, it evoked him for me. When I looked, I said, that's him, that's not me. Every once in a while I would catch something and say, boy, that's him. His love of people, of course, was quite stunning. I mean, he was comfortable everywhere with people, and people were comfortable everywhere with him, across all borders. And I think that was the most important thing of his papacy. Is that if I had to say one thing, I would say the most important thing is that he addressed people from all parts of the world, every culture, every religion. Everyone was moved by him during his lifetime, and when he passed, they missed him.
I'm a sportsman, and I've always been a sportsman. Now every step I take is like a knife.
Very few other portrayals of his life have managed to tap into his frustration, his human frustration, with the loss of the physical.
Yes,
you were very aware of that in the playing.
Yeah. This was in the script. I mean, there's no question this was in the script. But this was in the script because we found enough from our digging, and I have to say John Kent Harrison's ability. First of all, his ability to do a fellow who was a linguist, who was a world-class intellectual,
philosopher,
who was gifted spiritually, deep meditations, who was an actor, who was a poet, who was a sportsman, who was
a geopolitician, everything.
All of these things, right? A lover of nature. Yes, all these things and many more. And then he also was a warrior. He had fought the big tyrants of that of that century, and he had not been, defeated by them. He had crossed swords with the communists and with the Nazis, and he felt the responsibility of protecting his people from them, and he took that responsibility during that time. So when he came to the papacy, he was a warrior.
I wish to sing a hymn of praise to divine providence, which has allowed me to come home as a pilgrim. I, son of Polish land, I, Jon Voight, I shout from all the depths of this millennium, I cry on the vigil of Pentecost, Lord, let your Spirit descend. Let your Spirit descend and renew the face of the earth, the face of this land.
To get all of that in, John Kent Harrison and I both, and Cary as well, just immersed ourselves in this, in every piece of the history we could get, in every connection we could get. Some of it had to do with his friends, talking with his friends.
You met with Jevich,
people like yourself who knew him, and trying to get anecdotes, trying to get insights.
I was fascinated by it, and you mentioned it a little earlier. You said, I feel a bit like I'm a protector. What did this do for your faith personally?
Well,
you were
first of all,
Catholic.
it humbled me to be so, have such a ringside seat at a great life. But sometimes you get the idea that you're important in this business. Everybody thinks you're so important, and this was a person who really used every moment of his life to, to teach, to fight for justice and for the good, you know, truth. He was an amazing man. So what it did mostly to me was it humbled me and pointed me in a direction. There was a director used to say to me, "Go there, John, go there." Well, it was like, it was a Russian fellow, but this was almost like John Paul too, you know, saying, if you want to really climb the mountain, there it is. Here we go.
I notice you wear the ring, the duplicate of, the replica of the ring he wore. Why do you wear that?
Well, this was the ring that I wore during the filming, and it was a mark. I'm not superstitious, I tell you, at all. But I think everything is a sign. You know what I mean?
That's the Catholic in you coming out, John.
Exactly. That's it. But when I went through the costumes, I had very little time to do this piece. I had to use every hour. And the costume designer was a gal who was an Italian, and she was terrific. So then she said, "Let's try on the ring." She hadn't had my sizes. There was a ring, there was his ring, right, that they had duplicated, right? So, took the ring. I love the ring, it's an amazing ring. Just a very special, unique ring. No stone. Each pope has a different ring. This was his ring, the ring that he designed or approved, right? So I took the ring, put it on. Perfect fit. And she looked at me, she said, "You see?
It's a sign."
It's meant to be.
Final question. What is the enduring legacy of this man, of John Paul, from someone who's so inhabited him?
Well, I would say many things. But one thing is I think that the legacy continues, that his words and prayers for all people can be called upon to give us strength and guidance. And I think that, you know, I have several books, and I keep them around, and I keep a little place in my house for all the John Paul II stuff, my work on it. And as I read it, I haven't read everything of his, but as I go back over it, I say, "Oh, this is valuable. This should be said now. This is important stuff." For instance, his addressing of all religions, gathering all of them. And he says, "We are the heroes of our faith, of moral guidance." You know, and he says, if we're going to be that, you know, in a sense, we have to clean ourselves out. He says, coming to us, he says, in a way, it's a penance. And we have to come together. If we don't come together, he's saying, you know, we will be destructive. You know, we must find a way, and we leaders have to provide that path. Wow, wonderful.